Good evening. Welcome to Township Board meeting for Grand Blanc Township for Tuesday, February 6th. If we could all rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Robertson, would you please call the roll?
I would be happy to call the roll, Mr. Supervisor. Trustee Hugo is absent. Trustee Fike?
Here.
Trustee Raridan?
Here.
Trustee White?
Here.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Here.
Myself, of course, I'm here. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6 members present, a quorum.
Thank you. On behalf of Trustee Hugo, I just want to mention that she is still recovering from surgery, and we're hoping to have her back soon, but she passes on her regret for not being here, but she is joining us online, so she's well aware of all the things we have going on, and I talk with her just about every other day, if not more. So we wish her a very successful recovery. Okay, with that, we'll move on to approval of the agenda, and I will entertain a motion at this time. Mr. Fike makes that motion.
Motion by Fike.
Supported by Mr. White.
Supported by Mr. White. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. And now we've asked anybody that would like to make public comment to fill out one of these comment cards with your name and address so we can follow up if need be. If you haven't filled one out, if you could, and pass it up to Dr. Raridan here on the end, and we'll make sure that you get your 3 minutes to make public comment. We have Ms. Hood here who would like to speak. Mary? Good evening and welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity to address the Board of Trustees here in Grand Blanc Township. It is indeed an honor to be here this evening. My name is Mary Hood, and I'm a candidate for Circuit Court Judge, which is a countywide race. Some of you may be familiar with my name. I ran in the midterm election 2022 for the seat vacated by the Honorable Duncan Beagle, and I received nearly 49% of the county vote back then. And when I look back over the results, I did pretty well out here in Grand Blanc Township, and I appreciate all of the support that I received from this community. I'm running because of the outpouring of support that I've received. I was a bit hesitant to jump into something of this magnitude again, but I received so much support that I decided to run for a seat that will be vacated by the Honorable Celeste Bell due to age limits this year. I currently have the verbal support of both Prosecutor Layton and our Sheriff Swanson. I have a majority of the Board of Commissioners support. 6 of the 9 commissioners have verbally agreed to support my candidacy. And I believe that they're supporting me because they know a little bit about me. They know my background. They know that I have served all of the residents of Genesee County for over 21 years as a family division referee. Chief said, "Oh, you're the referee that we used to call you, right?" You know, we take those calls in the middle of the night, you know, to make decisions whether to detain children, decide whether or not, you know, they're a danger to the community. We make those calls whether or not we should remove children. We preside over custody hearings. I've presided over, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was upstairs in Judge Godola's courtroom hearing his docket. I know how to make decisions. I've been making decisions for a long time. The new judge will be assigned to the family division of the court. And I'm in the family division as a referee, making those tough decisions already. I have been a magistrate for 6 years. So there's more to being a judge than just knowing the law. You have to know how to run a courtroom. You have to know how to handle litigants, sometimes unruly litigants. I've been there, and I'm doing that. I've practiced law for 6 years before I was appointed a magistrate. So I appreciate your support, And if you have any questions, I'll answer them at this time.
We appreciate you coming and introducing yourself to us, Ms. Hood.
Thank you, Supervisor. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay. We also have Mr. Mike Yancho Sr. that would like to make a comment. Good evening, Mr. Yancho.
Good evening, Board. Mr. Supervisor. It's recently, well, not recently, over the past 10 or more years, it's come to my attention that we have a disconnect between the citizens of our community and the workings of our local government. It really shows up in the social media where, regardless of what's posted, people get the wrong idea and post criticism of our local government when criticism isn't warranted. It seems like our education system failed in the area of civics education. Every time somebody posts something that is negative and somebody else responds, those negative comments tend to snowball. And other people fall into line with that misinformation. And I don't know if there's a committee, something that can be formed, some links that can be put on our website. I know it's a difficult task, but it's imperative that that our citizens recognize how our government works, what the board does, what the different committees do, how taxes are spent, how our local government is functioning for our benefit. So I hope that somebody smarter than me can put some plans together and make something happen that people can access, whether there be a reward of some kind for, some incentive is a better word than a reward, but something to encourage people to go to a source of information that is realistic and assist in the functioning of our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yancho. Actually, Ms. Roberts, you showed me a website today from some plans you have or working on that actually does a couple of those things. So it explains how certain things work a little bit clearer. Everything from planning commission or roads and what have you. So thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to close public comment. I don't see any other comment, so we're closing public comment, bringing it back here to the board. And at this time, we have some special recognition, I believe, Chief. We're going to have a swearing in and badge presentation to our part-time firefighters Luke Larson and Luke Garnett. Also, the swearing in of Sergeant Adam Frank as our new full-time firefighter. These are some exciting times, and we appreciate the hard work of our fire department to attract new candidates to all these positions. So, Chief, Burdett?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. And as you said, it's my pleasure to introduce, I'm not going to introduce them, I'm actually going to have our Deputy Chief do it. Introduce some individuals this evening who have gone through and completed their state certification as firefighter level 1 and 2, and also welcoming one individual from our part-time ranks into our full-time position. So, Kent, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce.
Good evening.
Good evening. Start with introducing, first off, we're going to go with Luke Larson and Luke Garnett. They come up forward, please. These two will be the new part-time firefighters. Just line up right over there, great. And then I'm going to bring in Adam Frank. Adam Frank.
You guys come over this way so we get you on camera. We got people at home watching it. For our YouTube channel too. So.
Adam Frank has been with the department, what, 15 plus years as a part-time employee, and we're happy to have him come in as a full-time employee.
Absolutely.
And expect great things. Sergeant Frank was just bought a sergeant almost a year ago. So, great opportunity.
Let's give him a round of applause for his
I'd like to go ahead and do
You want me
your
to
thing?
administer the oath now?
Yes, speak,
Very
please.
good. If I could, may I?
Yep.
I need to. Good. Gentlemen, if you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of firefighter in and for the Township of Grand Blanc, County of Genesee, and the State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations, gentlemen. I'll leave it up to you. You're going to do the badge.
Yep, they're going to do the badges right now.
Back to my place.
So are we going to introduce who we have pinning the badges on tonight?
For Luke Larson is his father, who's been with Bill Larson, been with the department for
30-some years.
well, yeah, I was gonna say
Right.
how many. And Luke Arnett's father is also pinning him.
Fabulous.
Been here for about 7 minutes.
We have some Band-Aids if we need them.
Congratulations. Always a pleasure.
Good show.
Congratulations.
Luke.
Congratulations.
Oops. Welcome. Congratulations, man.
Show.
Yeah, congratulations.
Mr. Lima, any thoughts or comments?
It's, I'll tell you that this has been challenging across the state to recruit, and you've seen the badge pinning ceremonies for new officers for the police department, these badge pinning ceremonies for the fire department. It speaks volumes for the culture that our departments have created, because I've talked to other city managers across the state who are so frustrated, and some of them are down to where they have about 60% of their positions filled. That's how hard it is to recruit in today's day and age. So it speaks volumes to the men and women of our departments that they continue to be able to recruit. So congratulations to Grand Lake Township Fire Department, because they've come a long way in a few years. And it's really exciting to see the new guys coming on, and especially to have Sergeant Frank stepping up and filling that position as our new full-time firefighter. So exciting time for Grand Lake Township Fire. We got a new building coming in a couple years. Should be pushing dirt in June. So keep them coming, boys. We need more firefighters to fill that building.
Well, it does speak volumes for our township and for our fire department to have the recruitment effort that we've had over the past, even the past year. It's amazing to see how many people have stepped forward, and we appreciate the great work and the dedication that you guys have. And they're so excited about what they do and trying to help people. I know a number of them attended the Grand Blanc Chamber meeting, and I know people loved seeing them, and great to have them there as well. So congratulations to all of you, but congratulations to all of our new positions here. So congratulations, and thank you. We're going to take... We're going to take just 2 minutes, because we know that not everybody here is here to see us or to hear our board meeting. That I think they may have come for the swearing in, which is very good. But we want to give you a couple minutes to make your way out into the lobby if you want to take photos and get together out there. So we'll just take a 2-minute recess for you to make your way out there, and then we'll resume with the meeting. And I'm not sure everybody realizes in the public that our firefighters do much more than just put out fires. And we respect all the things they do for us. And it's kind of like police. They do more than just give people speeding tickets, right? A whole lot more. Somebody wants, I think they'll shut the door. Sure, please. Okay.
Melissa's got
Melissa
it.
will get it. Okay. Okay, on our agenda next is a privileged presentation. And we have Dave Conklin here, the director of the Genesee District Library. And I told him as he walked in, I had a conversation online with, I believe, a resident. And unfortunately, not everybody understands the amount of use that our McFarland Library gets here in Grand Blanc Township. But I'm excited. I told the person online, come to the meeting tonight, that we have actually a presentation that we're going to hear all about, all the great things going on. And you would think that, oh, everybody has a computer at home and, you know, the need for a library maybe has gone down. But I think you'll hear tonight from Mr. Conklin that that simply is not the case. So good evening, Mr. Conklin.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And just piggybacking on your thoughts, libraries are more than just books too. We do a lot more than just warehouse for books. We do all kinds of programming. So,
right.
Mr. Supervisor, I want to thank you for your attendance at our Black History Month brunch that we had this past Saturday. It was a sold-out show at the Genesis Banquet Center.
Fabulous event.
Successful. Judge Glenda Hatchett was there, and those are the board members who couldn't make it. We look forward to seeing you next year. So why don't we go ahead to the next slide. Just to give you a little bit of background about the Genesee District Library, there's two libraries in Genesee County, the Genesee District Library and the Flint Public Library. When I first came to the Genesee District Library, people asked me, should they merge with Flint Public? That was some discussions way back, but I came from Oakland County originally, and there are 40 public libraries in Oakland County. And then I was a library director in Macomb County, and there are over 23 different public libraries. So 2 public libraries, I think, is just fine for Genesee County. But getting back to the formation of the Genesee District Library, the reason I come here before the Township Board is you are one of our parent organizations. This board, along with the Genesee County Board, appoint our library board members. We're a district library, so we're self-governing with those board members. You appoint 4, Oakland County points, or Genesee County points 4. 3 of my board members, 3 of those who you appointed are here today. Our board chair, Linda Riles-Massey, our board secretary, Joni Towernicki, and our committee chairman for Personnel and Policy Committee, Dale Hostetler, are both here, or all 3 here. So the Genesee District Library is the 3rd largest library system in Michigan. We serve over 330,000 residents in Genesee County. Our biggest branch is here. One of the pride and joys is the McFarland Library right down the street, which this board also supports the building of. And our treasurer, Mark Kilmer, is very familiar with that building. We have our strategic plan, and what I usually do when I come to these boards, usually do it every year. With COVID, of course, that wasn't quite happening so much, but I'm back again to give you an update about the Genesee District Library. And we have a strategic plan, and we focus our efforts according to that strategic plan. And lifelong literacy is a big point of that. Meaningful partnerships, or partnerships with all different kinds of community organizations, friends groups, volunteers, schools, universities, and literacy, the Genesee Literacy Foundation. We also will focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the past few years. We're doing that with a diversity committee that we have, and we've developed programs through that committee that we roll out each year. And build capacity. And build capacity, some people might think that means buildings, and we need more buildings for that. But build capacity really is about our ability as library staff to serve our community, and our ability to bring resources to bear that our community members need. And of course, we practice fiscal responsibility every year. And you'll see a real important point I want to make of that close to the end of this slide. Next slide, please, Scott. So lifelong literacy, those are the three focus groups we've got. We want people, when you think about literacy, a lot of people think, oh, that's reading, right? Well, literacy has a lot more to do with than just reading. We've got digital literacy, right? Can you get on a computer? Scott talked to me about the person who posted on his community board about, well, libraries, you know, they're passé, we don't need them anymore. Well, libraries are playing an important role in the community because probably most people in this room have computers in their home and computers on their phone, but not everybody has that. Not everybody has that luxury of having a computer in their home or even having access to the internet in their home. So access to internet in the library is a big thing that happens. We have lots of computers. People who don't have computers, don't have access to the internet, they come into the libraries, and that's how they gain access to lots of services, actually, that they wouldn't have access to if they didn't have access to the internet at all. Go ahead in the next slide. So with our lifelong literacy, last year in 2023, I'm sorry, we had 1,184 programs. And that slide is a breakdown of all the different programs that we've had. So we've done, our summer reading challenge is very popular that we run, and that helps keep kids who are out of school engaged with learning and engaged with improving their skills so they don't fall back or slide back. So we do that as well. What you'll see there is the picture of what we are calling story walks. We did that this year. In Rust Park here in Grand Blanc, we have something called a story walk. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go out and look at it. It's a book on each one of those pedestals, if you can see the pictures. We have a page of each book, and you walk around that path, and you get to read the entire story when you're done. Now, that changes every month. We have our youth services library goes out there and changes that. So we're really excited about that. We've had some really nice feedback about that. We have another one similar to that in Linden. Go ahead, next slide, please, Scott. And then meaningful partnerships. That's something we concentrate on. And if you hit the next slide, Scott. These are just some of the logos that we have for some of the partnerships that we've got. 20 municipal partners. You guys are one of those 20 municipal partners that we have to bring buildings. In Genesee District Library, to keep costs down, when it was formed, the municipalities provide the access, provide the buildings. The Genesee District Library, we operate on less than 1 mil. Not many things in county government operate on less than 1 mil, and we're doing that. And that's because we partner with municipalities, and they provide the building, and they provide the parking lots and the utilities of those buildings. We provide the staff and the materials and the library equipment that go into those buildings. So that's just a list of some of the 56 other types of communities, nonprofit schools, parent groups, historical societies, senior centers, et cetera, that we partner with through the years. Go ahead, Scott. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that we focus on. We believe that a strong community is one that has diverse voices and it has different points of view that can be shared in constructive ways. And that's a big part of what we do with a deliberate thing we do when we're talking about doing our programs, and make sure that we have programs that appeal to everyone in our community and those that are disadvantaged as well. Next slide, please. Those are just some of the ways we do that. Last year at our Black History Month brunch, we had Nikki Giovanni. I don't know if any of you know who she is, but she's a famous poet. She came and spoke, and I already told you about Glenda Judge Hatchett, who came this year. So, but we do have several different diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that we do. Next slide, please. And then I talked to you a little bit already about the build capacity. We've got something called GDLU. It's Genesee District Library University, where we sign up staff. We see staff struggling in a certain area. We're going to sign them up for a class that we hold in-house to help teach them and improve their skills in showing people how to use our online databases or how to be better at their customer service if maybe that's not their strong point. So we're always trying to improve, and that's what our build capacity is all about. Next slide, please, Scott. Yep, and that's how we rolled it out. Those are some of the different things. We had an in-service this year. We have one every year where we talk about bring everybody out because we've got these 19 different branches and all these staff are kind of in these silos. So every year we have an in-service where we bring everybody together and we talk about training and different things together. So we learn together that way. And that's something they really enjoy. I enjoy too. So next slide, please. And I talked a little bit about practicing fiscal responsibility. And in this slide, you can see the chart, and we talk about our OPEB. I don't know if everybody knows what OPEB is, other post-employee benefits with the library. And you can see, I can't remember exactly what date, we got 2010 there. And you can see that we were severely underfunded in our OPEB. But that has changed drastically over the years, and I'm happy to say that we are over 100% funded in our OPEB liabilities at the library, something we're very proud of. We've done that through 3 different contract negotiations with the way that benefits are handled, and we've done that by setting up a trust and investing in that trust over the years. Next slide, please. Should be our last slide. And then part of the legacy costs with Genesee District Library are the retirement pension plan that our Genesee County employees are also in. Not all of our employees are, like I said, through contract negotiations, participation in the Genesee County Retirement Defined Benefit Program ended in 2013, which is the year I started as director. But you can see on this slide that we are the only unit in that particular set of retirement account that had decreased its liability. Everybody else's liability had gone up. So we're really proud of that. We are aggressively working toward that, and we are in a really good position financially now because of the way that we handled our contracts, the way we've handled our spending. So
very good.
That's what I have for you today. I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have, or I can drone on and on about library services. Visit us at Genesee District Library, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The library website is there. E-books are there always for you too.
Right.
Does anybody have any questions?
So, Mr. Conklin, in regards to McFarland Library and the usage of it, in terms of how does it compare to other libraries?
It's our largest library branch in our system, so it has by far the most visits come through that branch.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea as far as breakdown, what people are coming there for?
I don't have that with me, but I can tell you that it is on our website, www.thegdl, and if you click on our annual reports, those are broken down for everyone in the annual reports, usually around the last page that we have that breakdown on how many people are coming.
Okay. It's phenomenal what you've done on the unfunded liabilities, and our board knows well about OPEB and unfunded liabilities, and it's been one of our priorities as well. And we know that it is either a detriment to your future or a bonus to the future, depending on how you're dealing with it. And all of what it looks like here is that you are setting yourself up for success in the future. It's painful to do it because the fruits of your labor may not be seen for several years, but we're planting seeds for trees that we're not going to sit in the shade of, but that's what we're here for. Mr. Lemina?
Dave, could you comment? I saw that social media comment earlier today too, but just comment on, I think it said something like there's an empty parking lot, nobody goes to libraries anymore. Can you talk about the number of patrons that you actually see at the library or what those numbers look like?
Yeah, I think when we talk about visits, we're talking over 1 million visits each year, and that's 330,000. Our population is 330,000. 30% of that population is usually a card holder at any particular time. And circulation is right up there too. Now, we do have people, like when COVID hit, the in-person visits, of course, went way down because we were actually closed for quite a few months. But what we saw was the online visits and the use of e-books and those things skyrocketed. So I had projected, in about 2026, 2027, maybe we would see the e-content be larger than our in-person content, but COVID changed that right away. So it was just a huge thing. And because of COVID, some of the publishers relaxed things, so we're able to do things virtually that we weren't able to do before. And actually, our Black History Month brunch, we did it virtually 2 years in a row with our partner ABC 12, and that was very successful too. So. Yeah, so I mean, people are coming back. I think I don't have specific numbers, but if I recall, I think it's about 5% increase in our in-person visits in 2023 over 2022. So we hope to see that continue.
I know that the online, for me, I'm an avid reader. I usually have at least 2 books checked out. So I thank you for that, and I think how often you have new titles that are available to us. So I think when you make comments like, I don't see as many people the need for the library, you won't see my car in the parking lot very often. However, know that I visit the library weekly. Right. So thank you.
Yeah, and the library, that particular branch in particular, is open a lot of hours. So there are sometimes we've got that parking lot is full, sometimes it's a little more empty. So, and especially in the morning times on Wednesdays and Thursdays, we don't open till noon, so it's going to be empty on Wednesdays and Thursday mornings.
Place looks great too. Everything from the sign out front to inside and all around it, the facility looks phenomenal.
We've been really lucky for the community support, and the city of Grand Blanc as well has done a great job.
Absolutely.
Wendy Jean Brewer there has done a great job getting grant money for that.
We've had a great partnership with the city on that, everything from doing the assessment early on as far as what the long-term needs were going to be for that building. We want to thank our board members too that we have here. I want to say that the Black History Month event on Saturday was extremely well put together. The video that you did, I think, was in coordination with Channel 12, was it?
ABC 12. Yeah.
ABC 12 on the history of how Black History Month was established over the past, I forget how many years, but through all the various presidents, was very informative. Speakers, the honorees, all of it was top notch. And our MC, Miss Linda Rouse-Massey, as well as all the speakers, did a phenomenal job, but very good job to all of you. So thank you. And if our board members could stand up and be recognized that we have back here. So thank you very much. And anybody have any questions or thoughts? Yes.
I'd just like to say that the library does a wonderful job of taking care of itself. Works very hard to sustain itself, and Dave does a marvelous job.
Yes.
And that's all.
Okay. Well, we appreciate, having the library. It's an asset to our community. People, when they look at a community, they look at more than just, what houses they have, but what amenities do we have? Whether it's library, schools, parks, recreation opportunities, job opportunities, all those things are a factor, and we're very pleased to have, such a great asset in our community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the presentation this evening, too. Come back anytime. Okay. Thanks. Yep. I'm going to keep your laptop. This looks pretty nice.
It's working.
Yeah. Here, I'll grab it for you. Let's see, that one's mine. That's yours. That's yours. Okay. Oh, the mouse too. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Okay. We will move on now to approval of the consent agenda. Somebody cares to make that motion? Dr. Reardon, supported by Mr. Fike.
Okay, motion by Raridan, supported by Fike. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White. Yes. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
All right, thank you. And now we move on to the first item under old business. Item A, the board will hear a second reading of ordinance 24-01 regarding our noise ordinance. We have Mr. Smith, our planning and zoning administrator, with us this evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the second reading. I'm going to defer to Attorney Laddie for this process, since this is a little new to me as far as how the charter does their resolutions to the board. So,
Sure. And this is, again, our second reading of the amendments we made to the noise ordinance. And the reason we did this is we felt that when we looked at a collection of noise ordinances around the community, we felt that ours was actually, believe it or not, a little too restrictive. And while you wouldn't necessarily think that's a problem, it can be in terms of enforcement. And one of the most glaring examples, I think, of our being a bit low on the decibel scale was average, I think, either leaf blowers or lawnmowers were coming in not quite double what we had as the allowable sound, but close to that. And so Mr. Smith and his department, at the direction of Superintendent Limita, did the research and arrived at what we all believe to be reasonable decibel levels that will be able to be enforced by not only our township staff in terms of code enforcement or the police department, but also with decibel meters, we've got the opportunity for residents to provide information to us as to the level or the measurement of the sound that they're complaining of. One thing I want to point out is if you don't have a decibel meter and you don't get a reading, it doesn't mean that there's not a noise problem. There's still an opportunity in this ordinance for a municipal civil infraction to be issued if somebody makes a complaint under the public nuisance section that says that you can't create a public nuisance with an unreasonable emission of dust, smoke, odors, but also noise. And so we're able to, if we've got disturbances that, again, are upsetting more than, we don't want to go off just one complaint in a neighborhood if we don't have to. But there's an opportunity for decibel enforcement or non-decibel enforcement. And the second reading that Mr. Smith was alluding to is this: we don't have very many ordinances in the township that we've adopted, but when we do have one or an amendment, we have a first reading, we have a publication by website and by maintaining the record at the clerk's office, and then the second reading, which we don't normally see variations in the substance of our ordinance between the first and second reading, and we don't in this ordinance tonight, but we do have one, I think, coming up in our parking ordinance. So if the board has any questions about the process or the substance, you remember we did talk about this, I think, probably a month ago.
it was December.
Yep. And so this is your second reading, and it'll take effect 30 days after it's published.
I've got a question.
Yes, Mr. Feig?
So let's say there's some loud noise out there and they call the police. How, do they have a decibel meter? How is this enforced?
Well, if they don't, whether they do or they don't, the police will still respond to a noise complaint, and I'll defer to the chief as to the process of that necessarily. But if they go out there and they witness the noise taking place, and very often that's what happens. They'll hear, let's say there's loud music somewhere. The police will go out there, they'll hear the music, they'll find the source of it, and then they'll try to convince the person to eliminate that nuisance or that problem. If they're not successful, then they're able to issue a municipal civil infraction for that violation. Usually they're successful at it. If decibel meter, if the police have or want to use a decibel meter, they can. They don't have to. If residents want to use one or can or don't want to, they don't have to either. But if you get a traditional old loud music complaint, the police will respond and they have the ability to write a municipal civil infraction.
And is that most of them, music?
Well, again, I'll defer to the chief. I see the ones that I've seen over the course of my ordinance enforcement have primarily been related to music. I don't know, the chief may have some insight into loud vehicles. I know that's becoming more popular, unfortunately. But it's mostly, or there could be a group of people that are causing a disturbance or shouting, things like that.
Okay. Chief, any thoughts on complaints that you receive in terms of what they are?
A lot of them are music, especially from some local nightclubs. So we've responded to some of those. We do have a decibel reader. And Mr. Laddie, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of those are, our ordinances are misdemeanors, to where we go out and we would do the misdemeanor. However, code enforcement could do the municipal civil infraction, or you could end up taking care of that in court for that.
You have both. You have a misdemeanor option for you for disturbing peace, for example. Code enforcement is just limited to the municipal civil infractions. Yes.
I take it that, you know, our initial thoughts are to try and get compliance, not necessarily to
A lot of us for the police side is just gain that compliance and education. Hopefully that will work instead of enforcement action right away.
Right.
So we usually try to do the enforcement action on those type of offenses as a last resort.
Mm-hmm. Okay. After multiple attempts or what have you to bring it under control. Okay. Any thoughts from our board members, concerns? No. Mr. White? Okay. Mr. Smith, anything else?
Nope.
Mr. Lemata? Okay. Yes, Mr. Gilmer?
I guess I'm not clear on what is and what isn't.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this, what I know is that, so I had a resident reach out to me that had a vehicle, her son had a vehicle with, you know, new exhaust or whatever, and I think I read somewhere where our decibel rating on our previous or our current ordinance, actually the ambient sound would reach that level, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can be in your backyard and actually be violating just by standing out there just from the ambient sound.
Mm-hmm.
So it really wasn't a realistic decibel level. And so the level that we're looking at now is something that would be egregious. But as Mr. Laddie stated, that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even if the sound doesn't reach that decibel level, there can be a nuisance where maybe it's, you know, the hour that the sound is happening, or maybe it's some kind of, you know, abhorrent noise that just doesn't reach the decibel level. We still have some wiggle room to say, hey, this is not acceptable in this community or wherever it's happening. So that's kind of what we're looking at, Mark. Okay. Okay. Well, we appreciate it, Mr. Smith, and I guess we're looking at taking some action a little bit later in the meeting on this. David, or what do we do at this point?
No, I think this is our opportunity to adopt this as a second reading.
So we need to vote on this, whether or not we're going to move forward to the next step.
Correct.
Okay.
So, Mr. Supervisor, if I could, clarity on what we're voting on, because it's a second reading, but there's no motion before us or no language before us.
So the second reading is it's an motion to adopt the ordinance as presented, that, you know, to accept the second read and adoption of the ordinance.
Okay.
Motion to
Make
adopt.
that motion.
To adopt, okay.
Dr. Reardon makes the motion.
Okay.
Supported by Trustee Fike.
Motion by Raridan, seconded by Fike on item 8A. 8A. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
No.
Okay. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
Okay, very good. 5-1, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Item B, the board will hear the second reading of ordinance 24-02, Heritage Park semi-truck parking. Mr. Smith?
Yes, thank you, sir. This is the second reading, as you said. The only change in the language from the first reading in section 1, the very last line, it says no parking is allowed between the hours of 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So that is the only change from the first reading.
We've discussed this. I know I discussed it with the chief. I've seen similar type parking. You know, the problem we had before when we discussed this was there really was, you know, we don't want to create ordinances that are subjective and have gray area. We needed something that actually could be enforced. And, you know, what do we call overnight parking? Does that mean, you know, I can't be there part of the night or what have you? And I've seen other municipalities. I think it was in Oxford that had a similar sign that, no parking between those hours. And so basically, I mean, we have seen some motorhomes actually being parked out there in the past month for an extended period of time. It wasn't like overnight. It was like parked there for a week or more. I started getting text messages from residents and messages and pictures of it that, hey, is this acceptable now? So I think that would define it pretty clearly. Chief, you felt as though that 3 to 6 would help your officers to be able to know what. And obviously, again, just like the sound ordinance, the objective is to bring compliance, not to have people towed. I think we said that the signs would have the name of the towing company on it and the phone number. And, I would be in favor of issuing a warning first, and if things don't happen, guess what? Because most of those trucks and what have you are there for several days usually. They're just an overnight type of thing.
Right.
So I don't know what the board's pleasure on this, but Dr. Reardon?
Procedural question for the chief here. So there's a sign that says they will be ticketed and towed. So are you going to send an officer out, and if they're towing, can they give a ticket, or?
I believe this was just for the impound, right?
No, if it's an impound, right, so
Yeah.
if we're gonna tow it.
Yeah, so if we were gonna tow it, so the procedure would be for the tow company to go out there, see that there's a semi-truck that's parked between those specific hours of 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., notify us and put that into Lane Law Enforcement Information Network, then that particular semi-truck would be impounded, so then that semi-truck owner would not in turn report that vehicle stolen. So that would be our procedure.
Just one point. So in section 2, the options, you could be ticketed and or towed. So it could be either one.
Yeah, okay, the sign said ticketed and.
Yeah, the signs are going to change. We're going to be identifying the towing company. We're going to have a number to call, and we haven't. So the wording on the signs will change from what you see in the exhibit.
Okay.
And so what I'm thinking that we'll have for the signs will be specifically that vehicles that are in violation will be towed. Here's the number you call this towing company. So there won't, on the sign, you won't see a ticket option. You'll just see a tow option on the sign.
Okay.
Chief, is it possible to issue a warning first, as far as written warning, and put it on their windshield, what have you, so that when they come back to the truck?
So any new ordinance that we enact, we do a 30-day grace period to where all those infractions are warnings. Is it possible? It's possible to put something on the windshield, but you kind of get into that little gray area about how often you're doing that.
I would think it would depend on the situation.
Yes, exactly.
I mean.
All right.
But do you know, Attorney Laddie, would you know, what would be the fine for something like that? Do you know offhand?
So we can fine municipal civil infractions up to $500 if we choose. It's just like a misdemeanor. Usually don't start out with that sort of fine in the beginning. Usually it ranges in the $250 range. If your vehicle is towed, then it's unlikely that you would be also given a ticket for that as well. Again, our goal is compliance, not to double dip on fines. We figure if your vehicle gets towed, you paid a price already. But if it continues to happen, or if we find out that there's an owner, hypothetically, let's say a trucking company is parking a fleet of vehicles or something, and it's not just enough to tow and warn, then we may have to proceed also with our municipal civil infraction remedies. That would be pretty rare, though.
Right. Well, and that was going to be my question. If we had, pick a major trucking company that keeps on doing it,
Exactly.
then we would step it up.
Yes.
Clerk Robertson?
Yeah, when we tow them, where do we tow them to?
Well, I think the chief is working on an arrangement with a towing company, and so the name of the towing company will be on the sign, as will the telephone number.
And what's the process for reclamation of your property if you get towed?
So you would have to go down to that particular tow company. That's why we would put that name of the tow company, so that owner knows directly where to go to get that vehicle back. So they would pay the impound fee, then they would be able to get their vehicle out.
And those fees for impound stay with the towing company that did the towing, or do they come back to us, or what?
It all stays with the tow company, sir.
Okay. Okay, very good, thank you.
And that's pretty much standard in other communities as well.
Yes, sir, it is.
I think except Flint, I think they charge release.
Yeah, they may charge a release fee to get something out, but we don't do that. We
They
don't.
opposed to, right?
Right.
Does the impound fee include what it costs to tow it to the tow lot?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the fee.
that's the fee.
Yeah,
It's not
that is.
their little fee, it's the,
Yeah, it's all set by the tow company, so we have no part of it. So
what do they want to
We don't
tow a
collect any.
semi, do you think?
what's that, sir?
What would that go for? To tow it?
That I don't know, but it's pretty costly to
I
tow a
can tell you
semi.
that in Chicago, if your vehicle is towed, and I'm not talking a tow truck, I mean, not a semi, but a vehicle, it's $250. And that's if you even go and get it out like within an hour or two.
My son had a vehicle towed in the city of Flint, and it was like $300.
Right.
And that was for overnight.
Okay. Well,
And that was complete
Yeah.
towing.
well, we're hoping that we don't get to the point where we have to tow. Our hope is that with the signage and the notifications that we're going to get people in compliance pretty quick.
Yeah, and with that grace period, that will allow us to go and make contact with those people who are parking at that location.
One last question.
Yes. Go ahead, Hector.
So the game plan would be to have the record company, whoever we enter an agreement with, make a check once a couple days, once what?
Yeah, so I have been in contact with a particular tow company and asked if they would be willing to travel through that parking lot so we don't essentially become the parking police, constantly over on private property. That tow company did say that he'd be more than willing to do that. If there was any unoccupied semi-trucks that were just parked there between certain hours, then he would impound that, call our office, and put that into lien to follow that proper procedure for towing a vehicle off of private property, just like we do with other private property tows.
I imagine also would operate based on complaints too, that if somebody calls you and says, hey, there's been a motorhome parked over here for.
Right, then we would end up responding out there, and then we could call that particular tow company.
Exactly. Mr. Kilmer?
What happens if you have, you mentioned this motorhome.
Right.
What happens if this motorhome is on your property?
What do you mean? At my home or something?
Yeah.
Well, at my home, it's not allowed to be parked in the driveway for more than 24 hours during certain months of the year. So depending on what time of the year it was, I may get a notice from the township, from our code enforcement, that vehicle needs to be moved, correct, Mr. Smith?
Anything in the yard is code enforcement, anything in the road is the police department.
So yeah, we don't allow them certain times of year to be parked for more than 24 hours, right? 24
So
or
from
40.
April 1st to November 1st, you can park in your driveway with no
Right.
restrictions in the driveway.
What about the other
Other than
times?
that, you have to have it in the side yard or backyard.
Right.
You have 48 hours to unload and load and put it back where it's supposed to be after November 1st.
Exactly.
Okay,
Okay.
is a motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
It is.
Okay, then I'll make the motion to adopt the amendment to the Heritage Park semi-truck parking ordinance, item 8B,
Okay. Supported by Dr. Reardon.
supported by Raridan. Okay, Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Chief. Okay, with regard to our strategic plan update, we're going to talk a bit about our beautification, and the sun was shining today. I'm not sure any flowers are quite growing outside other than in the greenhouses, but we're getting the itch for spring here.
We sure are. Some
Good evening, Ms.
sunshine.
Roberts.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So we had our first beautification meeting a couple of weeks ago. We have several, actually, members of our beautification committee here. First thing on the agenda is our community cleanup. That is going to be on April 27th. We'll be trying to get some groups of volunteers to come out. We found from our last community cleanup that when we got groups of people like churches or honor students, or when we got groups of people, they wanted to come out in businesses also. So that worked out really well. We have a flyer that we need to do some tweaking on, but we have one. I put it in front of all of you just so you could see it. We will also be doing a press release and are hoping to get some buses to take us to the locations to do the cleanup. So we're really hoping to have a very successful cleanup this year because it makes such a big difference in our community. Second of all, we are talking about our flower beds, reestablishing our flower beds this year. We will be seeking donations from the community and businesses. We will have a sponsorship flyer. This just helps us pay for the beautification, so we're not using taxpayer dollars for that. Planters, possibly getting a few new planters this year, and then signage as well. Signage kind of borders the line of branding and beautification, and we are working on signage at Dorton Saginaw and Fenton and Hill, and we've got some fantastic designs already for signage, so we're really excited about that as well.
And with the cleanup, as you mentioned, I mean, we had credit unions helping us, we had churches, and really the more volunteers we get, if we could have, you know, for example, an MTA bus bring, you know, 30 or 40 people to one of the expressway exits, we park the bus there, we have our police there, as well as DPW. It really, we can clean up that exit or that entrance, you know, much quicker than if it's just 4 or 5 people. And also the safety factor of having all those people right there and having it blocked off, and then we can move to the next entrance or exit and really cover a lot of ground if we have a number of groups. I mean, Grand Blanc Township has so many businesses and groups that we could cover ground a lot quicker if we, you know, gather some large groups of people to help us. Well, thank you, Ms. Roberts, for your work. Beautification, we will be looking for sponsors to help us with that. And I recognize a few people in the picture on the flyer.
Right?
Few board members here.
Yeah.
Some of our staff. So we look forward, and the signage, you know, one of the things we're looking at, besides calling it branding, we're looking at, you know, replacing some signs and putting up some welcome signs to Grand Blanc Township as well. So excited about what we're doing there too. Thank you. Okay, under new business, the board will consider a motion to approve subscribing to the ERP system for data recording of fire-related incidents and inspections of occupancy for fire safety for $10,417 and authorize the township superintendent to sign all purchase and warranty contracts. Chief Burdett.
Again.
Good evening.
Presently, our system that we were using is emergency reporting. That system was purchased by another conglomerate that is no longer supporting the services of emergency reporting. So updating it to the National Fire Reporting System, how it works, it will not, they're not going to do that anymore. With that affects our ability to receive funding for federal grants and also through the state of Michigan for our firefighters training. So a lot of the firefighters, as well as our IT department, we took a look at the programs. ERP is the program that stood out the best. It's not a huge company, but they are very well known throughout the United States, and a lot of large municipalities are presently using them. So they're very satisfied with them, and they like the program. And this is integrated just not for fire incident reporting, but also occupancy inspections, and also for vehicle maintenance and inventory tracking.
Very good. Any concerns, Mr. Fike?
Make a motion.
Okay, making the motion. Supported by Mr. White.
Motion by Fike, supported by White on item 9A. Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you, Chief. Item B, the board will consider a motion to approve $10,497.50 for sketch verification services provided by Apex Software and approval for the superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. Mr. Limita?
We have our Assessing Director, Daniel Harrington, here if there's any specific questions for the board, but again, this is for the sketch verification services. Our assessors are cutting edge. They go out into the field with their iPads in hand. They're able to do everything out there, sketch everything to verify. This is just so that we can continue to do so. We hope the board will consider that. Any specific questions about the software, how it works, how they use it, Danny would be happy to answer those questions for you.
Sure. Good evening, Ms. Harrington. So the software we've been using, is this what we've been using, or?
It's actually a new program that an existing software that we utilize offers above and beyond the services we currently have. They take our existing sketches of all of the properties and create a layer and overlay it over top of the aerials that are flown every several years throughout the entire county.
Right.
That will allow us to focus our efforts on areas that may need more attention than others to pick up inaccurate information that we have. So
okay.
it'll allow us to be more fair and equitable and uniform in our assessments. So.
Okay. I think everybody's in favor of that. Any thoughts or concerns from Ms. Harrington on the software? Okay, then a motion would be in order.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. And supported by Mr. Fike.
Supported by Mr. Fike. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, item C, the board will consider Resolution 24-4 to approve the 2024 Poverty Exemption Income Guidelines and Asset Test. Mr. Limita?
Every year, the board's asked to review this, and the board actually does have the ability to set those income guidelines and asset tests individually for Grand Blanc Township. The assessing director, Daniel Harrington, has made what she believes her suggestion to move forward. And again, she's here to answer any specific questions you may have about why we set those limits, where we set them. If you're interested in the amount of poverty exemptions that we actually get on an annual basis, it's not a lot. But to be able to set those so that people can meet those guidelines helps some of our most disadvantaged citizens who may struggle with paying a property tax bill.
Dr. Reardon?
Yeah. So why did we set it at, because I think it was 14 something?
So we have to adopt the federal poverty income levels. Those are set obviously by the federal level. We have an asset guideline that we also have the applicants apply for, and one of the levels on there that you guys can establish, I think the last time it was established was, I think, 2020, is their assets can't exceed a certain monetary amount. Right now, for a homestead of one person, their asset level, they cannot exceed $4,000, and then an individual applicant with more than one person in the household, it can't exceed $6,000.
Okay. So my question, though, is, and maybe you answered it with your first statement, the 14,000 something, I mean, that seems to be really low, and I think it's 19,000 for a couple.
Yes, so it's, that is the federal poverty guideline.
So we have to, is that something we have to accept then, or?
That is the minimum. We cannot make it any lower than that, but we can change different percentages. Right now, we have a 100% exemption or nothing because that was what the board chose to do at the time. We are required to follow the federal poverty guidelines. We can't make it harder for them to get it, but we can't go lower than what those guidelines are.
And that would be my point. I mean,
14,000 is not a lot of money for someone to survive on. Absolutely, but that's what the minimum. They can't make more than that and qualify as one.
25,000 isn't. I mean, it's.
What the board has the option to do is we can adopt a different resolution that allows us to do a 25, 50, and 75% exemption, and we would have to determine what income levels we wanted to accept for those different percentages.
Have you looked at anything that we would be able to know what percentage of our public is at 25,000 single and?
I'm not sure what the general consensus is of the incomes throughout the township, but we could, for example, if we wanted to do a 25% exemption, we could do it, we have to have it mathematically supported in order to be able to do the 25, 50, or 75% exemption. Because right now, they either meet the minimum requirement and receive 100% exemption, or they don't receive the exemption.
So what is that? I'm sorry.
Mr. Kilmer?
What is that figure?
Which figure? We don't know what that figure is.
For one person to meet, currently to meet our guideline, they would have to make less than $14,580, and their assets cannot exceed $4,000.
And what is that? You know, so let's say you're at that level or below, then what? I mean, you get.
And they are exempt from, they become exempt from property taxes aside from special assessments.
I see.
No one is, you know, they're not exempt from the special assessments that they would receive on their property.
Mr. White?
How many properties are we actually talking about? I just can't imagine there's a lot of people making $14,000 a year who own something in Grand Blanc.
There are more than you would think. A lot of them are on
disability.
Yes, so they're obviously their incomes are limited. I would say you probably get around a dozen a year, and probably half of them actually meet the requirements of our current asset test.
Out of 12,630 parcels.
That's about, I would have figured, you said more, that's about what I figured.
We also have the veterans exemption too, which.
We do. We've got almost 120 disabled veteran exemptions that we currently have in the township.
Right. Mr. Kilmer?
I had a gentleman in my office today. That we were discussing exactly this situation, and Nancy and I went over it with him. The problem that he ran into, he qualified as far as the exemption until his wife died. And when his wife died, then he lost that extra, that put him over the 14,000 limit. And I mean, we didn't know what to tell him, but.
Unfortunately, if they no longer meet the qualifications, they wouldn't receive the exemption anymore. The state does change the, just like the disabled veteran exemption, they do review their laws and rules regularly, and they did change the poverty exemption, and I think it was 2021, the requirements with the asset testing guidelines needed to be in place.
So, Ms. Harrington, if we, so for example, the veterans, take that, the veterans exemption, are exempt from property tax.
Aside from special assessments. Yeah.
Right. So how does that work with the schools and everybody else that would, you know, receive money from their property tax?
They would not.
Okay. So in this case, anybody who meets the threshold or is 14,000 or less, there's no property tax to any of those entities. Okay. Yes,
so,
Dr. Reardon.
My thought is these people are really the poor of the poor. I mean, in our area for sure. And I would like to at least explore the possibility of the 25, 50, 75 for people, you know, maybe making less than, maybe you have 30,000, because they have to own a home. That's the other thing, right? I mean, because that's the whole purpose of the property tax exemption.
Correct, yep, it has to be their primary residence, but if they have additional assets that they could liquidate to pay their property taxes, that also does.
Right, like an RV or a boat or anything. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's not like.
Or a cottage.
Or a cottage, or, you know, anything like that. They couldn't.
Qualify.
They couldn't qualify. So if we raised it a little and maybe, I don't know, 25,000 for single, 30,000 for a couple, and do that 25.
That's exactly what had happened to this gentleman. His wife died last year.
Yeah,
and
there's
that,
only
that put him over that 25 limit, and that.
Is there? I mean, I'm just wondering if there's appetite.
Well, there's going to be situations where people don't qualify from one year to the next just because of, you know, life situations, and we're not going to be able to, you know, accommodate all of those situations. But correct me if I'm wrong in what you said, Mr. Harrington. We don't have income information for the residents in Grand Blanc Township other than the people that file for for it currently.
Correct, and the information that we receive is only as good as what they're willing to provide to us.
Right, so if we were to make a change, we really don't know what the impact would be in terms of how many people would be able to take advantage of it, or
Correct.
what that would mean financially to the township or the school or whoever.
Correct.
So, Mr. Fike?
This 14,000, is that cost of living every year go up, or has it been?
It is the federal poverty limit.
I mean, has that gone up, or is it?
Yes, last year I want to say it was, I don't have last year's with me, but it was 13,000. Yeah, it does, or just under 13,000 last year.
Okay.
So it does
What kind of time frame do we have, Ms. Harrington, to set this?
prior to March Board of Review on March 11th. But if you guys wanted to explore the 25, 50, 75%, they did discuss it in a training that I attended today. You know, rather than picking a monetary amount, picking a percentage over the federal poverty guidelines. Like if they're 10% over the federal poverty guidelines, they would only receive a 75% exemption and so on. So you have to be able to defend the logic behind why you're approving the exemption, which is why we have 100% or nothing at this point in time, because it's hard to logically defend the decision to give them more or less.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the cost of living and people being able to buy gas, 14,000 to me, for somebody that owns a home, is ridiculously low. 19,000 for a couple is ridiculously low. Now, that's not you, I know this.
Oh, yes, no.
And so I think to defend it, I mean, what's fair, what's just? We got to be somewhat compassionate. And so I would like, personally, I'd like to almost see that, 25,000 for a single and 30,000 for a couple, and just come up with some rationale. I can't believe there would be a lot of people in this community that would meet that own a house. And the second thing is, how many people qualify under this current?
Like I said, we've had, just from memory from last year, around a dozen that applied. Some of them well exceeded the federal poverty limit, and then I would say maybe half of them, maybe half a dozen people qualify.
Mr. Lehman, any thoughts from you? You do our budgeting and look at our income.
I mean, we've always followed federal guidelines, and not because it's easy, but like Danny said, you have to have, however you want to approach us, if you want to change it so that instead of just getting the full 100% exemption, if they make $5,000 more, you'll give them the 25%. Yeah. You have to have some rationale that you're going to publish, and then you'll adopt that moving forward every year. I think absent like specific demographics, what percentage of the population, like how many households actually do, again, you have, right now you get 12 applicants out of 12,000, more than 12,000 parcel owners. You get 12 applicants annually. Would that increase? I don't believe that it will increase by a great deal, quite frankly. Maybe you'll get 18 applicants instead of 12, but you have to select whatever rationale you're going to want to choose. It's easier, obviously, to choose the federal guidelines. They are they're adjusted every year by the federal government, and it's just an easier way to follow it, obviously, and stay within guidelines, so that you're not setting yourself up for a challenge, disparate treatment.
Right, Mr. Fike.
You two are talking about two different things, right? You're talking about raising it from 14 to whatever, 25. But she was talking about this step approach where if it's not all or nothing. Is that right?
Right now, it's 100% exemption or nothing.
Right.
And that's what Dr. Reardon's talking about, is going to the step.
Yes, and adopting the
Yeah,
25, 50, or 75% option.
I see.
Which we would have to have a defendable reason, because it goes from a single family from 1 to 8. So you'd have to have a defendable way to change those limits.
So when you're saying defendable reason, so for example, let's say it's 14,000 right now and we want to move it, you have to be able to say why.
The logic behind the decision.
Behind why we would want to move it.
Yes.
Because otherwise people would say, well, hey, why don't you move it 5,000 more, or
right,
what have you, to fit my income level.
Right, because we are audited by the STC every handful of years, so we also have to explain and defend and support why people are receiving the exemptions and things like that as well. So we would have to have a guideline that clearly stated, because we have volunteer panel that makes these decisions, and they need clear guidelines to make sure that they're following the expectations of the township board as well.
Now,
Dr.
I mean, when I used to write grants, we would write grants based on the percentage of people that are, you know, in poverty in Grand Blanc Township, kids specifically. And a lot of that came from the census data. I don't know why, number one, we couldn't use that. Number two, cost of living, I mean, everything. I mean, this cannot be that difficult. I'm not saying towards anybody to try to justify doing a gradation like this. I mean, I know you have to put something down, but this is what we collectively as a township pay everybody to do, right? I mean, this is, so my preference is that we establish something, a gradation at least.
Mr. Kilmer.
You know, again, dealing with this gentleman, basically,
Mr. Supervisor.
He's 80 years old. His wife died, okay? And that put him in an entirely different category.
Sure. Because now he's single with X number of income.
Exactly. And I don't quite understand why that happened to him. I'm not saying it's wrong, I just...
Yeah, well, with having one less person in the household and having maybe similar income or a little bit less, he was still over the limit at that point then. Clerk Robert's been patiently waiting.
You mentioned that we're subject to audit for this. We have to justify it to the federal government, correct?
To the state tax commission. Us as an assessing department, we have to be able to provide documentation and support.
And what is the penalty for noncompliance?
They can seize our tax roll. They can seize our tax roll. I mean, we have to meet their minimum audit requirements, and they have guidelines that we have to follow. So we would have to follow and have clear guidelines as to...
I'm not quite certain what the sum total of the conversation is, but you indicated that we needed to have this in place for the March Board of Review. So time grows short. Do we want to bring this back in 2 weeks, perhaps, or what do you want to do here?
We can, but you're going to have to provide direction. Like, what do you want to? What's the rationale? What do you want to set it on? Clearly, when you think about why they have it, is because we could set it to the average income level in Grand Blanc Township, and then we're all, you know, tax exempt. We don't have to pay taxes, and what a great thing, because other than we won't have any money to do anything.
I'm not.
And so that rationale has to come from the board on what, you know, if you want Danny to develop a new chart, you want to add, you know, you want to say, well, if it's between those two numbers, if it's between 14,580 and 19,720, they get a 50% reduction. But why? What's the rationale? Because we've identified that we have a significant population in our community that falls into that category. There has to be some driving force behind why you guys want to do that.
Yes, excuse me.
Dr.
So I don't think we have to say so many people in our community. I mean, the rationale is, can somebody reasonably live on this? And I mean, sadly, I'm going to the grocery store more than my wife now. And so, you know, we buy the groceries. The gas, everything. And a person that's making $14,000 or $20,000 or $25,000, that's single. I mean, maybe $25,000 doesn't equate to the full thing. Maybe $14,000 to $20,000 equates to 75%. Maybe, or you know, pick something. 20 to 25 is 50, and you cut it like that. But
yeah,
are there any other communities? Because I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but are there other communities that provide this gradation?
What I would like to do, Dr. Reardon, is we aren't going to have the wherewithal this evening to set what those are or come up with that. But if you would be willing to meet, I would be glad to sit down with you, with Ms. Harrington, Mr. Limata. I don't know if there's any other communities, but we can certainly look at that or find out from whoever the oversight is on this to see if there's any examples of other communities that have come up with reasoning or justification that actually works and has been challenged and withheld challenges. And then we can bring it back to the board in 2 weeks to see if we've been able to model anything. And also, I think we need to look at what that impact would be on our revenue streams for all those involved, and on the impact on the residents as well. So,
I agree with that.
Would that be a consensus with this board to do that? Mr. Limata, you good with that, or?
You'll have to approve it at your next
right.
meeting.
One way or the other, we're going to have to approve something, whether it's the federal guidelines or something that, and whatever we come up with, we'll try to send out in advance so that everybody can take a look at it prior to the meeting, but I can't guarantee.
Just to be clear on my position here, I appreciate the sentiment behind the discussion to the extent that I understand it. I'm not persuaded that we shouldn't do just simply adopt what we have in front of us. I'm comfortable with the resolution that's before us, but I'm willing to entertain the discussion if we've got a couple weeks. I just wanted to be clear on that point.
Sure.
And if it matters, I totally agree with what you're saying, Jude. I think it's very noble, but I'm worried that when she takes it to the state, they're going to say, well, you don't have to have specific reasons why this, you can't just be because you want to help people. I mean, it has to be, it sounds like it's a little complicated.
It has to be logic. You have to be, everything that we do, we have to be able to defend. We have to explain the why behind everything that we do.
Because we're good people and we want to help people.
And transparency is important too.
Yeah.
I mean, just from my department to residents and things like that, I want to be able to explain to a resident saying, well, my neighbor got this exemption and I make $100 more a year than them and I got denied.
Yeah.
That's something that my team and myself need to be able to explain to people coming to our counters as well.
Right now, the reason is...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right now, the reason is that's the federal guidelines, but when it is our rule, we have to come up with, well, here's the reason why. Dr. Reardon?
No, yeah, I say we do that right now with the person that came into Mr. Kilmer's office. You know,
right?
It's just a few bucks more, but it's just too bad. And so, I mean, and the reasons aren't because we're nice people, although that might be the case. I'm not claiming I am for sure, but the reasons is that the cost of groceries, the cost of gas, the cost of consumers, our water bill just went up for people. I mean, there are these increased in costs that somebody making $14,000 to $20,000. That's why I didn't want to vote on the increase last week, but I did, or 2 weeks ago, for the water, because $5 can impact somebody.
Well, go ahead, Mr.
Just remember that what you're talking about is reducing our revenue doing this. If we went from 12 applicants to 200 applicants, that's less money that goes to every taxing entity in the entire county if we change those to get more people in there. So our costs continue to climb as well. And what you're doing is saying, let's cut our revenue on the one hand. So I'm just saying there's two sides on that coin.
And I understand that, but I would rather cut our revenue and let somebody be able to eat or comfortably get something that a $14,000, $20,000 person can't get right now because of this system.
We're going to have a similar discussion with our next item. I believe it's coming up here in 2 items from now. But
can we find out, forgive me, for next week how much this would cost us if we did this?
No, we are not able to figure that out because we don't have the income levels for everybody in the township.
And it's not my determination on who would be approved for it. It would be our panel, our board of review. My department does not get to make that determination. These guidelines are for the members of our board of review panel to follow and review these applications.
I see.
So the more clear and transparent we can be with our guidelines for the board, the better educated and the better decisions that our board of review members can make.
Yeah, their application is made to the board of review for determination. So the board of review looks at, they bring in their assets, they bring in their income. So it's not just the income guidelines, it's also do they have the wherewithal? If they have $100,000 in assets, then it's not going to move forward. They have to be able to meet that $4,000 and $6,000. So you can raise that level, but that doesn't mean approval, because we raised it $5,000. If they still have more than $4,000 in assets, they're not going to qualify.
And I agree with that, by the way. I'm on board with that. If they own a home, a second home, or a RV or something like that, absolutely.
And their assets include their savings account and things like that as well.
Jewelry.
But we have no idea, I mean, unless they list them.
Yeah, what they have to provide to us.
We don't have the ability to investigate all these situations.
There are certain municipalities that do run credit checks and things like that on their poverty applicants, but I think there was a lot of fraudulent activity when they were doing it.
They fill out the form, they bring their information to show their assets to the Board of Review, and then they're the ones, the applicant is the one who, under penalty of law, if they were found to fraudulently present
Withhold
or
information.
hide assets, then they're in trouble, not, you know.
All right. And I'm fine with that aspect.
Okay, well, we'll need to meet fairly quickly here and see what we can come up with. Tomorrow, 8 a.m.
Got to take it my place.
We'll figure out a time after the meeting.
Tomorrow, 8 a.m.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harrington. Okay, we'll move on then to item D. The board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of 0.83 acres of wetland mitigation bank credits from Gunnell Farms 2 LLC in the amount of $91,300 as required by Eagle, EGLE, to complete the permitting for the construction of the new DPW and fire department facility. Mr. Limita.
As we've discussed in the past, as part of our review, and we do wetlands flagging anytime you're going to do construction, it was shown that the wetland aquatic plants had grown out past what would have traditionally been the wetland. In fact, it used to be a go-kart track there, but now they have found cattails or other aquatic plants. So it's flagged as wetlands. We had to ask and submit our permit to Eagle to move forward and to disturb a portion of those wetlands, roughly about a half an acre. After a few months of review of our request, they came back and we had 30 days to act to buy some wetland credits. Now, we did request and ask if we could just do the mitigation by expanding the existing wetlands that are to the north of that property, because we have several acres over there. It's all mostly wetlands. We could have easily extended it there, but Eagle turned us down and said the only way we can move forward is if we are to purchase wetlands mitigation credits, and you have to buy them from a place that has them available for you within your region. These guys, Gunnell Farms, had some for us. They didn't have the emergent wetlands that was requested by Eagle. They had these forested ones, but I got permission from Eagle to purchase the forested wetland credits. And I need permission from the board to sign these, move it forward, and get the check there, because I have to have all the paperwork into Eagle no later than February 16th.
Is the motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
It is.
Then I will make the motion on item 9D.
Okay. It's more of a Mr. Fike, so just a comment. So when somebody says they have swampland to sell you,
that could be a good thing.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
Okay.
I do, and we have a support from Trustee
Yes,
Fike?
correct.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So this was not a contemplated expense when we designed in the location?
You never know until you get your wetlands flagging done. So we have an environmental group come in this case, Mark's Wetlands, and they come in and they do the environmental flagging. We know what were considered a long-term wetlands map, but when they came in, if they identify, like I said, in our case, it was aquatic plants. When we dug up the track, had we brought in some fill and put it there, it probably wouldn't have extended its growth pattern down that way. But shoulda, coulda, woulda, I guess. We didn't know that at the time. So no, we didn't anticipate this. So it's a $91,000 expenditure to purchase wetlands credit.
Right. Yeah, we knew there were wetlands there, and we were prepared to preserve those, but we didn't realize that by tearing down the building, it would create some aquatic plants. So we had a motion that was supported. Go ahead.
For a vote.
Okay, Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item E, the board will discuss a resolution opposing fees proposed under HB 5089 of 2023. We have sent out previously some notes with regard to the Drain Commission's concerns. I attended a meeting this past month with most of the Genesee County municipalities that this would affect, along with Commissioner Wright and also with Senator Cherry. And we discussed a number of the concerns with this, and Senator Cherry was going to be taking those back and understood what those concerns are. I can run through just a few of them, highlight them if you'd like. Mr. Lima, do you have anything to start with, or other than that?
Nope.
Okay. So one of the things that to understand is this would place, I think, a $2 or $3 fee on every monthly water bill, $2 for each entity. Now, first of all, if you use 1,000 gallons, a week, and you're a business, or you're a home and use $1,000 every 3 months.
1,000 gallons?
I'm just saying 1,000 gallons, $1,000 worth of water, whatever. You're going to still get that $2 fee. Whether you're a business that uses millions of gallons a year or a resident uses a few thousand, it's still $2 a month. So really, it's a fee that's going to hit everybody the same regardless of your income, what have you. This is an enterprise fund that runs our water here. It's not tax dollars that are used to fund our water department. It's the ratepayers. And so I'll run through a few of the things that may have an impact on that enterprise fund. I think to start out with, I think everybody wants to help those that are in need. I don't know that anybody on this board or any other board wants to see that not happen, but I think there are some things that need to be taken a little bit closer. So with that, the shut-off provisions are basically cumbersome and tremendously restrictive, and would place an impractical burden on local municipalities. While onerous to every water provider, the threat of a shutoff is one of the only tools available to ensure payment from those who have the ability to pay their bill. It's critical for a community to retain this tool to as much a degree as possible to ensure mass non-payment, which threatens the sustainability of the entire system. There's a 30-day window application for approval by the state of Michigan may not be realistic. It also creates a limbo period for the local provider. So if somebody said, hey, I need help on my water bill, the state's supposed to turn that around in 30 days, but in the meantime, we don't get paid. It's also very restrictive for any kind of shutoff of water. Currently, there's no initial income or asset verification that exists for applicants, and no regular renewal process that exists for those accepted into the program for assistance with water. Allows for potential fraud, potentially harming those underserved residents most in need of the program. Another point from the Drain Commission's office, the bills do not specify whether an application stays with an individual or if they move across multiple addresses, if it stays with them. If the beneficiary is transient, does the application stay with that individual? Another point, no ability for multifamily units to ever be assessed a shutoff notice. So multifamily units, which we have plenty of, we would be unable to send a shutoff notice. The 200% poverty level criteria in the bill package may allow for unsustainable number of individuals to not have to pay their water utility In Michigan, the 200% poverty level for a family of 4 is nearly the median household income, meaning that well over a third of the state could be eligible. This could create a financially unstable, unsustainable program, leading to the loss of revenue to local communities, increased billing to residents. The list goes on and on. Let's see. I mentioned to you the fee is assessed in an unfair, disproportionate manner, harming individuals, since the fee is by account and not measured, on the meter. One person household is going to be billed the same amount as somebody who's using 1,000 gallons. Decriminalization of illegal water hookups goes too far by reducing the penalty to a civil infraction. This allows for increased fraud behavior by repeat offenders and large amounts of water theft, indiscriminate water usage, and contamination. I know we've prosecuted people for illegal connections, whether it's construction projects or what have you. Civil infraction also has no mechanism to return that money to the water provider. Should be income-based in terms of the fee. And actually, the fee has the potential to violate the bullet requirements. And I don't know, David, Mr. Laddie, or could probably explain what the bullet requirement is. But anyways, that's kind of in a nutshell some of the concerns that the Drain Commission has brought forward. We have our own enterprise fund here for water, and we balance the costs in that very carefully. And if we're not able to, we recently had a shut-off notice that we provided to a particular facility, a mobile home park, which had we not gotten paid for that, it would have taken a hit on our enterprise fund. Any hit to that enterprise fund or loss means everybody else's water rate goes up. Dr. Reardon, you had your hand up?
Kilmer.
Oh, Mr. Kilmer.
I was going to say, as you were going through this, it sounded exactly like our trailer park problem.
Mm-hmm. Right. We would not have been able to send a notice that we're going to shut off the water and force them into paying.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
So what do you do with that?
Right.
Well, I think,
Mr. White?
Here's my problem. Where do we go with this? I don't like advisory. This is the first time we've had some, I think in almost 4 years, we're taking a position on a state bill. Like, why? This isn't our job. That's the state's job. We can have opinions, and obviously it sounds like there's good and bad both in this bill, but I'm not really comfortable just having a token vote on what the state may or may not do. It seems like it's not really our position and kind of gets away from what the purpose of our board is.
I have similar views on most bills. The only reason why I brought this forward, Mr. White, is we do have an enterprise fund for our water, and so this legislation actually will affect our township directly in terms of our ability to make, we can't use tax dollars to bail out our water system. We're one of the few municipalities in Genesee County that are a wholesale customer for water. Most of the communities in Genesee County, with the exception of Burton, which passed a resolution this past couple of weeks similar to this, they also are a wholesale customer. But to be honest, we're actually the largest wholesale customer for Genesee County water. So in terms of the impact that this legislation would have on our own enterprise fund, while many municipalities, it won't affect their municipality, it'll affect Genesee County Water and Waste. This will have a direct impact on our township. So I don't like getting involved in the state legislation, but when it affects directly our own township operations, I get concerned. Mr. Fike?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
That we vote on this.
Okay. Any more discussion on it or thoughts?
I don't know that I fully understand it yet.
Basically a $2 fee to go on everybody's water bill once a month. That would go to fund, the estimates are to be a $200 million fund that, according to what the Drain Commission is saying they're really, and from what, Senator Cherry in our presentation, it lacks a lot of details that still need to be fleshed out. Is it going to bail out water departments that have mismanaged and continue to mismanage their water departments? There's no asset test really for people that would qualify to have their water bill paid. There's no usage requirement. So for example, if I qualify to get my water bill paid, does that mean I can just use as much water as I want from then on? You can come over and fill your pool with my water if I'm getting my water bill paid for. So there's a lot of questions with regard to this legislation that aren't answered.
Mr.
Yes.
Supervisor. First of all, I will second Trustee Fike's motion on this bill.
Okay.
I would point out that we have been watching the evolution of this legislation since before it was even introduced, when I believe Superintendent Limita brought it to our attention some months ago. And concerns have been expressed about it and from our Drain Commissioner's office. And there's not just the adverse effect of the fee on the constituency, but if the provisions you describe take place, then it really does, it causes great difficulty for our enforcement for all the reasons that are mentioned. So I agree that this is a rarity. We've not opined on legislation in the better than 3 years that we've been aboard together, but this does seem to be particularly on point for us and our constituency on this issue. So I'm willing to entertain it to send a clear message to our legislators that we do not support the provisions of this bill.
Well, my concern is for our residents, in that this has the potential for raising water rates significantly. If we can't force people to pay their water bills in quite a few circumstances, we're looking at harming our residents more than helping them. I think all of us would be in favor of coming up with a way to safeguard those people that might need assistance, but to not have a lot of these holes filled in this legislation, I think could be detrimental to our residents as well as our own enterprise fund for our water and sewer. Otherwise, I would not encourage us to be taking positions on particular pieces of legislation. We haven't done that, and Mr. White is correct. And I don't want to see us going down this route, but when it has this kind of impact on our township's enterprise fund for water and sewer, it's particularly concerning.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now that we have a second in it.
Yes.
When we vote on this.
Yes.
A no vote is against this.
We do not want a resolution.
And a yes vote is that we do want a resolution.
We want a resolution in opposition.
Correct. So a yes vote would mean you're in favor of the resolution. A no vote would be no, you're not in favor of the resolution.
I know what I'm voting on.
And the resolution would be to oppose the legislation without, I would encourage them to come back with better legislation. So, okay, so is everybody clear on that?
Okay. So there's on item 9E, we have a motion and a second. Shall I call the roll, Mr. Supervisor? Trustee Fike?
No.
Okay.
So no on the resolution?
No on the resolution?
I'm not in favor of this.
You're not in favor of a resolution.
Okay.
The resolution opposes the legislation.
Do you oppose the legislation?
I oppose the new legislation. So is that a yes vote?
That's a yes vote.
Oh, I thought we clarified that.
The yes vote is in favor.
Can I rescind my no vote and say yes?
Well,
the resolution opposes the legislation. So if you're for the resolution, that's opposing.
Okay.
Let us begin again. Trustee Fike,
Yeah.
on the resolution.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Trustee White?
No.
Okay. Trustee Raridan?
For this resolution, yes.
Okay, very good. Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
5-1, motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, item F, the board will consider a motion to approve $45,937.21 for a major repair to the aerial truck and allow the superintendent to sign all contracts and documents. Mr. Limita?
So, Kent, you're going to want to go up. The aerial truck is one that we need to replace, and we're currently working through that situation. It'll come before you for about a little over a $2 million investment. In the meantime, the aerial that we have is in dire need of repair. We had an estimate of what we thought that was going to do to allow us to repair it so we can continue to use it for the 2 years it'll take us before we can get the new aerial. And unfortunately, I will let Deputy Chief Miracle take it from there on the bad news we got on what the amount is.
The bad news is that because of the year of the vehicle, that they no longer make parts that are replaceable. You got to buy the whole assembly. So, and the main assembly just for the 2 cylinders is like 11,000 a piece. So, on top of that, you have labor and everything else. You got to take it to a special place and do it, and it's got to be tested.
Well, 45,000 is much better than 2 million right now.
Yeah, and it is out of service at this point, and it's really
right. We need
special piece of equipment that is needed, especially for the commercial properties that sell that.
Okay, Mr. Fike.
In what budget year will we be asked to buy the new truck?
That depends. The truck will, there's different options when we get ready to move this forward. Right now, we have been looking at a grant to see if we could get some assistance, even up to maybe $1 million, because if we're going to house the truck in the new fire station, it is within the low mod income area of the township. So there could be an argument made that it could qualify for some grant funds, which would be fantastic. And we would only have to come up with $1 million. When you place the order, depending, they will do financing terms for you, and you don't have to pay for the whole thing all at once. If you're just going to buy it outright, typically you would put 50% down when you place your order, and then pay it upon the remainder upon delivery. But they will be very creative when you're spending $2 million. They will spread it out over 4 years, or they will provide you with financing options. They'll provide you with a discount if it's cash. I mean, there will be some considerations for the board to look at, but
so this 45 will get us through this year, and then next year
you'll definitely be paying for it in the 2025, 2026 years. It's going to have to. It's been planned for. It's in our CIP. We know this capital purchase is coming, so we have planned for it.
Okay.
Even this will come out of capital funds, because we're still investing in an asset that we have, so it can be a capitalized expenditure.
Mr. Laddie.
Is this truck used more specifically for industrial properties or warehouses and things like that?
It is mostly for commercial properties, which is apartment complexes and industrial.
So a warehouse, for example, it would be helpful, not just for the height, but maybe for scope, so you could get to it. Is there an opportunity to explore whether the DDA could contribute in the future to part of this purchase, considering the configuration of a lot of those properties?
I mean, potentially, because of the build-out on the south end, that makes the need for why we're talking about doing a 100-foot aerial on the purchase, is so that we can be able to extend to fight fires out to the middle of these buildings. And even with plastic omnium, the cooling tower that's part of that plastic omnium plan, that's 61 feet high. So clearly there's a need for the 100-foot aerial to get us out and over the building and up to those kind of heights. But we didn't specifically list it in our DDA. Try to leave it generic enough to think of all the things that you're going to potentially need to spend money on. We didn't specifically list equipment or fire apparatus.
Well, I asked the question, but maybe you're going to put it right back to me and say, take a look at it.
So if you can find me a way to say yes, I would appreciate that. But I don't think it was really thought of when we were putting the DDA together as much as buying apparatus as some of the other things that we were intending.
Well, we could always approve it and then reimburse from the DDA, correct?
Oh, I was thinking more about the purchase of the
actual
truck.
Big truck.
Oh, okay, I got you. Mr. Clerk Robertson?
What is the current height of the aerial? How far? And are we Are we upgrading to a higher height, or are we keeping it at the?
We're repairing the one right now.
Okay.
This is just to repair the existing one that we have, the 100-foot platform.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor.
You're welcome. So you were talking about the DDA purchasing when we're ready to. Okay, follow you.
Maybe in part.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay, any thoughts, concerns? Anybody care to make that motion? Okay.
Okay,
Mr.
motion.
Fike makes the motion.
Motion by Fike.
Dr. Reardon supports.
Supported by Reardon. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Reardon.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item G, the board will consider Resolution 24-6 stating that the Friends of Grand Blanc Parks and Recreation is a recognized nonprofit organization in the community. And we have Mr. Kimmer with us this evening. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening. So yeah, before you is a resolution to recognize the Friends of Grand Blanc Parks and Recreation as a local nonprofit organization in the community. The purpose behind this is so that this organization can apply for charitable gaming licenses, conduct raffles, for certain events with parks and recreation, community events, fundraisers, things of that nature. It does consist of 3 members who are involved in the community, and I'm here on their behalf tonight to get this resolution before you.
So this is mainly for us to be able to do fundraising and what have you?
Correct. Yes, they would conduct the fundraising and raffles at the events at the park.
Okay. Well, we have no shortage of projects that we'd like to complete out at the park, and the only thing holding us back is funding. So anybody have any thoughts or concerns with regard to us approving this? Somebody care to make that motion? Mr. White makes the motion, supported by Mr. Fike.
Motion by White, supported by Fike. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Reardon.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Future agenda items, 2024 board meeting topic dates. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Limita?
It's included in your packet. It shows you kind of a schedule going through 2024 of some of the things that are going to come before you. We put the strategic plan, kind of listed it down like we had prior to, so that you guys can take a look at it if you want to move any of those at any given time because you think it makes more sense. But we also just put a couple of things in there like the Q4 Treasurer's Investment Report, when those would be due, the quarterly investment reports, the ballot language. We just put a couple of key things in there just to keep us on track. And then as far as budget presentations, budget approvals, that kind of thing.
Okay. Anybody have any concerns or thoughts on that agenda or that list of calendar dates? Okay. Our topic, next meeting, strategic plan item will be Township Campus Plan.
We'll provide a complete update on where we are. Today's meeting that we held, we are getting through the design development process, and they put a price tag back on it. So when we first went through the process and we got it back down to 22 million, we went through, then we go through all the design development aspects of it, and they see how close we actually came to that number before we're starting to finalize to get ready to go out for bid. It came in, we were at 21.6 initially. It came in at 22.9, but there was a question about $500,000 on the mezzanine roofing for the fire department that I think we come to consensus that we didn't really need what they were proposing. So we're actually going to come in really close to that $22 million number. Of course, we don't know what the bids are going to be coming in, but they're basing that design development on, this is really a page by page, you know, what's going in here, where are the doors at, where's the glass, what kind of screens, are these whiteboards, you know, which doors have key cards on them, which ones don't. So, I mean, we have gone through that process right down to the nth degree, including with IT and HVAC and things like that. So this is really, we feel very comfortable after today's meeting with looking at that dollar amount that came out of the design development phase. And I think we can provide you guys with some pretty good artist renderings and a look at how much money we're talking about. It's also important for us because we're going to have to do the notice of intent to let the taxpayers of the township know that we intend to go out for bonds to finance this project.
Okay. All right, so on to board reports. Mr. White, anything to report on?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Fike?
No.
Dr. Reardon? Mr. Kilmer?
No.
Clerk Robertson? No. Just a few points. Not sure if I mentioned this, but we actually worked with Commissioner Dr. Beverly Brown, County Commissioner, and a couple of the other local municipalities, and we were, as a group, awarded a $50,000 grant for Community Mentors Economic Development Symposium, and it's going to be an invitation-only event. But basically, the participants will address innovative strategies of getting people here, being here, and keeping people here in Genesee County. And obviously, Grand Blanc Township and a couple of the other townships will be the principals of that event. But we have some great speakers coming in for that event, and so that was great that we won that grant award. One other thing that's been occurring is the I-75 corridor plan. There's an advisory committee that I've been part of. They had their second meeting this week, but we're looking at everything along I-75 corridor from Auburn Hills north to the 23-75 split, and basically looking at everything from overpasses to whatever suggestions the various municipalities along the route have recommended. So we're in the initial stages of it, but everything from safety, congestion, utilities. My concern is with a lot of the overpasses, we have outgrown those roads, both with vehicle traffic and then also wanting to be able to traverse those with pedestrians, bicycles, what have you. They just aren't wide enough. You know, we're looking at Grand Blanc Road with putting a left turn lane in there on the overpass so that we don't have the concerns as much anyways pulling into Bicentennial Park. Right now it's a huge hazard whenever we have anything out there, the traffic backups. Somebody comes flying over that overpass and we have cars stacked up that can't be seen. So that's a good thing that the state is taking a look at, you know, what upgrades need to occur. And so we're pushing hard for pretty much all of our overpasses to have some work. And it also is a bottleneck on Baldwin Road, is what we found too. We've got all kinds of growth in that area, but the overpass hasn't been widened in, you know, decades or ever. And so we need a serious look at that. And actually, I was pleased to see that all of our concerns were listed on their plan as far as looking at. Also, one of the things, serving on the 911 consortium board, they are looking for a new location. They've outgrown where they're at. And I know that Mr. Limita and several of our staff have met with them, and we're looking at several options that we are encouraging them to look at. They'd be an asset to have in our community. I think that's pretty much it. One of the things I just wanted to mention that we announced this past week, actually our last board meeting, I know we talked about the $1.4 million in grants for pathways. I know Mr. Limita passed this along, but this is actually the Fenton LAF, they call it, pathway. And actually looking at their timeline, that they made their grant application October 2021 for county TAP funds. It's taken them 3 years to complete that process. That's a 3-year process, and we're pleased that they're doing something similar, but everybody has pretty much that 3-year process. But with that, Mr. Laddie, anything?
No, other than we're requesting a closed session.
Okay.
tonight for consideration of employee performance evaluations and some employment contracts.
Okay. Mr. Limita?
That's it.
Okay. I will make the motion that the board go into closed session
And I'll
to
se-
discuss employee contracts and evaluations.
Okay. Trustee Raritan?
Yes.
Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6-0 motion passes. We enter into closed session at 8:01 PM.
Okay. We'll give a few moments for the room to empty. I think we can stay right here.
Yeah.